Why is our generation so broke? And is it really going to get worse? Or maybe you're just here because your phone recommended this video while you were doom scrolling. Either way, buckle up, because we're diving deep into the big, messy reality of finances in the 21st century. I think of this video as your crash course on why younger folks, millennials, Gen Z, and maybe even the generation after us, often find themselves struggling, even when they're doing all the right things. First off, let's set the record straight. We've all heard older folks say that younger generations are lazy overspending on brunch, or blowing it all on pumpkin spice latte and TikTok trends. But if you look at the data, it turns out our struggles might have a tad more to do with skyrocketing housing prices, astronomical student debt, stagnant wages, and a host of other problems we're going to lay out. Spoiler alert, it's not because we're all burning money on avocado toast, although, yes, it does taste pretty good. So if you're tired of hearing how you need to skip your morning latte to afford a house, as if that would solve everything, this video is for you. We're digging into home prices, cost of living, student loans, and what we can do, if anything, to survive in this economic landscape. Ready? Let's get started. Section 1, the housing crisis. Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, housing. Because let's face it, that's the one expense that can shred your wallet in a heartbeat. Back in the baby boomer days, let's say the 1970s and 1980s, home prices were significantly more affordable relative to income. Sure, interest rates were sometimes higher, and the style choices were questionable looking at you, 1970s wood-paneled walls, but the bottom line is this: baby boomers could generally buy a house with fewer years' worth of wages. Here's a little comparison. In 1988, the median home price hovered around $110,000. Meanwhile, median annual income for a boomer around 33 years old was roughly $27,000. That's a price-to-income ratio of about 4, meaning the cost of a median house was around 4 times the annual household income. Keep in mind that's still significant, but not nearly as dramatic as it is today. Fast forward to 2024. The median home price in the United States has surged to around $433,000, while the median household income is somewhere around $70,000. In other words, you're looking at a price-to-income ratio of well over 6, sometimes 7 or 8 in certain cities. That means if you were to save 100% of your annual salary, good luck paying for utilities, food, and Netflix, it would still take over 6 years to buy a modest home outright. That's not just tough, it's borderline impossible in many markets without some creative living arrangements, like moving back in with parents or cramming 5 roommates into a 2-bedroom apartment. In short, younger generations today are dealing with a housing market that's flat out more expensive relative to what they earn. And we haven't even started talking about inflation or student debt yet. Section 2. Why did housing get so expensive? So how did we get here? A few factors come into play. Number 1, higher demand, limited supply. The population is much larger than it was in the boomer days, and in popular areas like big cities, housing just can't keep up. When more people want the same limited stock of homes, prices soar. Basic economics, folks. Number 2, earlier marriages for boomers. Baby boomers tended to get married and remarried younger than people do now. That often meant 2 incomes paying the mortgage from the get-go, which made it easier to afford a home. Our generation is marrying later, if at all, which often leaves us with just 1 income to tackle a mortgage or even steep monthly rent. Number 3, real estate outpacing inflation. While inflation has been slowly but surely creeping up over the decades, housing has become even more expensive faster. A $100,000 home in 1990 might cost closer to $377,000 in today's world. Meanwhile, wages haven't quadrupled. Add it all up, and you get the current predicament. Owning a home has become a dream that's slipping further and further out of reach for many. And if you think renting is somehow magically cheaper, well, try browsing rental listings in a major city and see how quickly you'll be searching for a cardboard box on Craigslist. Section 3, student debt. The other monster under the bed. Next up is the dreaded student debt. If you're a millennial or Gen Z, chances are you, or someone you know, is saddled with tens of thousands of dollars in loans. The average cost of tuition has risen sharply, and the total student loan debt in the US currently sits at around $1.7 trillion. That's enough money to buy an island, or maybe 1,700 islands, depending on which part of the world you're shopping in. Back in the day, college was just cheaper. A student could feasibly work part-time at a diner, flip some burgers, and actually pay down tuition fees. These days, a single year at a private college can easily cost $40,000 or more, not including living expenses and that occasional coffee run that boomers are convinced is the root of all financial evil. Public universities can also range in the tens of thousands per year for out-of-state students. The result? A generation that starts its adult life already behind, financially speaking. Instead of saving for a down payment on a house, many of us are chipping away at monthly student loan payments, often for years or even decades. And ironically, the more people who get these degrees, the more competition there is for jobs, meaning the degree might not pay off as handsomely as it once did. It's like running on a treadmill that's dialed up to 10, while someone keeps throwing banana peels at your feet. Section 4, job competition, stagnant wages. Speaking of which, let's talk about wages. Another major reason we feel poorer is that wage growth hasn't kept up with the cost of living. Sure, the nominal dollar amount might look higher on paper today than it did in the 1970s or 1980s, but if you adjust for inflation and factor in how everything else has ballooned in price, we don't come out ahead. Moreover, The job market is tough, not just because you need a college degree for entry-level positions, but also because more people than ever are getting those degrees. According to some studies, the number of people graduating has increased dramatically since the 1970s. While that's great for overall education levels, it also means more competition for the same pool of entry-level roles. So you end up with entry-level positions that say must have 3 to 5 years experience, leaving new grads scratching their heads like, how exactly do I get experience if everyone wants me to already have it? In other words, a bachelor's degree used to be a golden ticket to a good-paying job. Now it's a minimum requirement that often leads to starting salaries in the low $50,000 range, if you're lucky. Once again, that might sound decent until you consider the cost of housing, groceries, transportation, medical insurance, Netflix subscriptions, and, well, you get the idea. Section 5, the car payment squeeze. You can't talk about costs without talking about cars. In the US, especially, most of us rely on vehicles to get around. Public transport in many areas is, shall we say, suboptimal, so a car is often a necessity. And here's the kicker: the average monthly car payment has climbed to over $700, with loan terms stretching to 5, 6, or even 7 years. That's a lot of money going out the door just to have a set of wheels. Consider that every dollar spent on a car payment is a dollar not going into an emergency fund, investment account, or that looming student loan tab. When you add the cost of insurance, fuel, maintenance, and the occasional parking ticket, don't act like it's never happened to you. It's easy to see why cars are a big financial drag. The freedom of the open road feels great, until it collides with the reality of your bank balance. Section 6, consumer debt, credit cards. If student loans and auto loans weren't enough, there's also the wonderful world of credit card debt. As wages remain relatively stagnant, many people turn to credit to bridge the gap between what they earn and what they spend. Before long, those balances can balloon, especially with interest rates that can range anywhere from 15% to 25% or even higher. So what do we get? A generation, actually multiple generations, waking up each month with new bills that keep piling up, often paying only the minimum. It's like digging a hole while someone else keeps shoveling dirt back in. And credit card debt can sneak up on you in ways you don't notice at first. Maybe it was a few too many online shopping sprees, or maybe it was paying for medical bills when you didn't have enough savings. Either way, it becomes another anchor weighing down your ability to get ahead. Section 8, the effect of technology distractions. Let's take a quick detour and talk about technology. Yes, our smartphones are little marvels of engineering, but they can also be massive sources of distraction. Between the lure of social media, streaming services, and the never-ending flow of advertisements showing us the next best thing to buy, it's no wonder so many of us feel compelled to spend money 24/7. More importantly, technology can lead to something else: constant FOMO, fear of missing out. When you're scrolling through a friend's Instagram feed, seeing them living their best life on some beautiful tropical vacation, you might feel pressure to level up your own lifestyle, even if your bank account is telling you otherwise. Technology isn't the sole reason for financial stress, but it certainly plays a supporting role, fueling our desire to keep up with the digital Joneses. So here we are. Housing is prohibitively expensive, student debt is sky high, wages are slow to grow, and the cost of living is brutal. That's why many younger people feel like they can never catch up or get ahead. It's not that our generation is lazy or financially illiterate, although, yes, some avocado toast purchases are definitely happening. It's that we're navigating a game whose difficulty level got turned up to expert right about the time we signed on to adulthood. But don't lose hope. Yes, it's a tougher journey. Yes, it may feel unfair. Yet, people are still finding ways to buy homes, grow their savings, and build fulfilling lives. The key is making informed decisions, budgeting effectively, limiting big monthly expenses, saving, investing, and finding ways to level up your income, either through job changes or entrepreneurial ventures. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on finance, life hacks, and how to survive this wild economic rollercoaster. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts.